So in this video I'm going to show you how to find an estimate for the mean if you are given a table. So once again, this is a table for the time taken to solve a puzzle. So 2 people take between 5 and 10 minutes, 14 people take between 10 and 15 minutes, and so on. We need to find an estimate for the mean. Now the mean is what most people refer to when they talk about average. And the way you do it is you add up all the numbers and divide by the number of numbers. However, the problem with the table here is we've actually lost some data because we've grouped it. So whilst there are 2 people who solved this puzzle between 5 and 10 minutes, you don't actually know how long they took to solve the puzzle. So one person could have took, say, 7 minutes, the other person could have took, say, 8 minutes. Or they could have taken, say, 5.5 minutes and 9.5 minutes. So you don't exactly know how much time they took to solve the puzzle, but you do know it lies somewhere between 5 and 10. So the problem with this data is you've actually lost your original numbers. So that is why when we find the mean, we can only estimate it, and that's why we use the word estimate. So the best thing we can do is, if there are 2 people who solve the puzzle between these times, the best estimate we can have is the middle of these. So we need to assume, and I'll write down midpoint here, we need to assume that these 2 people took 7.5 minutes to complete that puzzle. So that's our assumption, and that's what gives us our estimate. 10 to 15, so our assumption is 12.5 minutes. And this one will be 17.5 minutes, and 22.5 minutes, and 27.5 minutes. So those are our estimates. Now, if I want to find the mean, I'm assuming that 2 people took 7.5 minutes. So I could write down 7.5, 7.5. And the next 14 people, 12.5, 12.5. and write that out 14 times. But that'll take me forever. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to multiply the frequency times the midpoint. Because I'm going to be adding together 2 lots of 7.5, so surely that's the same as 2 times 7.5. I'm also going to be adding together 14 lots of 12.5, so 14 times 12.5. So this multiplication is effectively replacing the list of additions that I will be doing. So once again, 13 times 17.5, 6 times 12, 22.5, and 1 times 27.5. Now what you need to do now is you grab a calculator and you work these out. So I get 15 here, 175 here, 227.5, 135, and 27.5. Now just because it says estimate, it doesn't mean that you need to lose any decimal points that you got. You need to keep those. So what this is telling me is if I added all these numbers together, it would be the same as if I added all these numbers together. So if I add these numbers here, you get 580. So once again, by adding this big list of numbers, it will come to 580. Now the mean is where you add all the numbers together and then divide by the number of numbers. Now there is going to be 1, 2, 3, 4, plus another 14. So basically the number of numbers I've got is going to be derived from the frequencies here. So if I add all of these up together, I get 36. So the number of people who have solved the puzzle is 36. So finally what I need to do, I've added my numbers up together, 580, divide it by the number of numbers, 36, and that gives me 16.1, and that will be to 1 decimal place. Once again, in the estimated mean here, you are allowed to have decimal places. One common mistake people do is rather than add these up, they would divide 580 by 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, because that's the number of categories. But now you're trying to find the total number of people. Now this method is normally known as the MAD method, because you multiply, then you add, and then you divide.